Hi, Phil Kurth here with another WordPress tutorial. And in this video, we're going to take a look at a simple automatic versioning strategy that you can use when enqueuing style sheets and JavaScript files. Now, the reason this is important is because when people revisit the website, you want to make sure that they've always got the most up-to-date version of the styles and scripts that are available, okay? And you don't want them to be in situations where you're making changes to a website, you're pushing those changes out to a production server, but when that user revisits the site, they're getting the most up-to-date HTML, but the browser is using out-of-date CSS or JavaScript because it's got cached files, okay? The browser's caching strategy is essentially to it looks at the HTML, and if it's got a file locally that matches that URI, it says, hey, I'm just going to use that because it's more efficient and it's going to result in a faster user experience for the person visiting the website, right? So this is really great for the user experience, and I think it's pretty good. It's probably good for servers too because it would reduce their need to serve everything all the time, which probably saves on resources. But it can be problematic for developers who are making changes to websites if they don't have a versioning strategy in place. And if you've ever worked in like tech support or customer help or whatever, and the solution is, hey, you need to refresh or you need to clear your browser's cache, it's probably because there's a lack of versioning or something somewhere in place, right? And we shouldn't really expect end users to be clearing their cache. Like it shouldn't be on them because they don't even know what a cache is, right? Okay, so what we're going to be taking a look at is a way to make sure that the URIs that define or that tell the web browser where the script and the style sheets are, we're going to make sure that they're unique whenever you make changes. Okay. Now, the cool thing about WordPress's asset system is that it gives us some tooling already. Well, it's pretty simple. It gives us the ability to define versions that end up in the URI. Okay, so when you're using WP register style or WP register script, you've got this parameter, the fourth parameter, called version. Okay, its default value is false, and when it's set to false, basically in the HTML, let me just reload this. Sorry, you'll end up with this ver parameter in the query string. It'll just say version equals. In this case, it's 5.8.1. Now that's just the WordPress core version. So if I come over here to WP CLI and I check out the WordPress core version, you'll see that we're running 5.8.1. Okay, so that's basically doing what it's supposed to do. So that's what WordPress does when it's told that the version is false for that particular asset. Now, interestingly, this supports a range of values and they do different things. So if you put a null in there, you'll actually remove the version query string parameter entirely. Okay, so that's interesting to note. And what's also interesting, I didn't know this until I started experimenting here, but you can pump in an array and it will encode that array. And so I personally can't think of a use case for this, but it's just interesting to know. So just know that that's possible. All right, so I'm just going to drop this back to false for a second. All right, some other things to note here is we can put any value in here we like, right? So you can put a number or you can put a string. Right? And we reload the page here and we'll see that there's a number there and a string there. I mean, it's a string regardless in here, but like they're both working or they're both functioning in that URI. Now, the thing to take away here, or probably the important thing to keep in mind here, is that by updating this version, you're basically, by updating this version here, you're basically telling the web browser that, hey, there's a new, I don't want to use the word version, but you're telling the browser that there's a new URI, or the assets add a new URI, so the browser should re-download it. Okay, even if it's got a locally cached version, it should re-download it. So essentially, what you could do, like a very manual process here, could be just to, start with version 1 or whatever you like. And if you go and make changes to your style sheet, just up the version. Okay, so change it to version 2. And now it will ship with version 2 so that users' browsers will download the most up-to-date version. Okay, And that's fine. Like that's a fine strategy if that's the way you want to roll. If that's easy for you and you're happy to stick with that, go for it. But for me, I don't like the idea of having to update a CSS file and then go somewhere where it's being registered and update its registration. Okay, I just don't like that idea, especially when there's an alternative. So what we're going to look at now is a way to automate the changing of that number. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a function that's built into PHP called file mtime. All right, file mtime is a cool function. You basically give it the path to a file, and it's going to give you the file modified time. All right, so let's take a look at the function quickly. It doesn't have any implementation here, but this is just a stub. But basically, we're looking here at the doc. So file mtime gets the file modification time, and it returns either int or false, both of which are supported in the version parameter for our asset registration functions. And it's going to return the time the file was last modified or false on failure. So it's going to be returning the time, the time is returned as a Unix timestamp. Okay, so that's interesting to know. So that's probably all we really need to know. So basically what we need to do here is just pass this a reference to the file, and it should give us a modified time. So let's just test this out. I'm going to grab this here, all right, and I'm going to drop this into file mtime. I'm going to grab this whole reference. I'm going to var dump it so we can see it in the browser. Okay, and I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hit reload. Now what we're going to see is it's going to pump out a false. All right, so we remember file mtime falses or produces a false when there's a problem, right? And the reason that's producing a problem is we're using get style sheet directory URI, which effectively gives the browser a URI. So if we take a look at what that is quickly, so we var dump that, we're going to see we've got this URI. And this is designed for network requests, right? It's HTTP // blah, 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 blah. And that's not what PHP wants to use. What it needs is a reference to the file on disk, all right, so that it can grab that file. So the way we get that is we just shave off this underscore URI piece, and we use get style sheet directory. Okay, so we reload this, and you're going to see now that we have basically a path to that file, and that's on disk. Okay, so if we take that now, I'll get rid of this var dump, and I plug that into this second var dump, we're going to see that we now get a timestamp. And so this is good. This is progress. This is what we want. And this timestamp here, this is the last modified time for the particular file. Okay, so if I go and open up my style sheet and I make a change in here, okay, just chuck some random class in there, reload this, watch this number here. Okay, we see it changes. Okay, so it's updating. All right, so we've got the right piece of information here. So this file mtime, actually, oh yeah, no, that's right. So we just proved that's fine, that's good. So let's kill it off. All right, so let's take that, let's stick that straight in the version parameter. Okay, save that, reload it. And what we're gonna see down here now in our network tab is we're gonna see the timestamp appearing in the URI. And I can reload this and reload it and reload it, and it's always going to be the same number unless I come over to my style sheet and I make some changes to it. Save that. Now watch this number, reload that, it changes, 1952, okay? So basically when you're changing file, it's just updating the timestamp. And the good thing about this is we don't have to do anything to our registration at all right? It's just registered once and it uses file mtime. All we need to do is focus on updating our asset. And this works fine on both style sheets and JavaScript files. Okay, so if I basically take the same approach here and plug that in here, script dot, was it script or scripts? Scripts, okay. Scripts, I'll do the same thing here. And then we get the updated timestamp. So it's exactly the same. Reload it, there's no change. Go to my scripts file and just do something like this. Reload, and we see that that timestamp has changed. So this works equally as well on scripts and style sheets. basically saving us the need to worry about manually managing that version. One quick thing I'll point out before we wrap this up is that the register style and script functions, I'm using these separately. So I've got on register in the style and script there, and I'm on queuing them down here. You can actually pass all these other values or all these other args directly to onQueue asset if you want to. Okay, so internally the onQueue style, like you could basically just, in this case, I could go like this, and I could just onQueue it. And the onQueue function, if we take a look, if it's got something passed in the second, if it's got a source parameter, it's going to go and register that asset for us. Okay, so we don't have to have it spread across two lines. So this technique will work equally well when either registering or on queuing, depending on your choice of approach here. Okay, that wraps it up for this video. If you like this kind of stuff, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.